Welcome to the Coach's Corner. We're here, of course, at the Tivoli Tap House where they have great food and great beer. We have a change of faces here tonight. I'm here with Brenda Vazquez. Brenda, thanks for coming to the show.
Thanks for inviting me.
So I actually heard that you used to be an athlete here at MSU Denver. You were a soccer player, and now you're behind the mic. So I got to ask, since you're a senior, what do you hope to do after college?
So I'm pretty excited because I'll be graduating in May. But I plan to work for a Spanish TV station and just focus it in sports.
That's super exciting. Yes. So you are in the right place right now.
Yes.
Maybe we should do a Spanish show sometime, you know, Eric? Spanish show would be fun. She could be head host.
Yes.
So Brenda, who do we have tonight on Roadrunners, or on the Coach's Corner?
Well, Catherine, we're going to bring the audience a behind-the-scenes show. We'll first welcome in Alex Pappas, who is the Assistant Athletic Director of Compliance and Operations. He's new to MSU Denver and will tell us about the world of compliance. Someone that is not new to the program is the head athletic trainer, Stephanie Bagley. She will come on to tell us how her staff keeps our student athletes healthy and working in order during the season. And as well as Jerrid Oates, former baseball coach and current Assistant Athletic Director of Facilities Operations, and he'll tell us a little bit of all the exciting work it will take to host the 2019 Softball College World Series.
Wow, it sounds like it's going to be a great show, and if the audience wants to get a behind-the-scenes look with Roadrunner Sports, this is the show to watch.
Yes.
But before we bring on our first guest, we want to catch you guys up on what happened this past weekend in Roadrunner Sports. Our softball team took 3 of 4 games against CSU Pueblo at home this past weekend. On Sunday, freshman outfielder Adi Valdez was sensational for the red and blue. In Game 1, she drove in 2 runs in a 5-run 5th inning to help the squad take the 8-2 win. In Game 2, Valdez connects on her first collegiate home run to lead their team to the 3-2 win. Valdez went 4 for 9 on the weekend, scoring 3 runs and driving in 3. The softball team is now 10-8 in RMAC play.
The women's golf team took part in El Chipo and Pueblo on Sunday and Monday. The team shot 306 after day 1 and finished 7th out of 16 teams. The team was led by junior Jennifer Hankins, who finished in 2nd place after the first day. She hit a +3 ending the day with the 2 birdies in her final 2 holes. The squad would finish 9th overall for the entire tournament.
The baseball team is red hot after completing a 4-game sweep of Adams State University on the road. That's 10 straight victories for the red and blue. MSU Denver jacked 4 home runs in the 15-5 finale, including 2 from the nation's leader, Matt Malkin. The senior hit 4 home runs on the weekend and has 16 of them on the season. The Roadrunners are now tied for 1st place in the RMAC standings with a 10-2 record.
How about some outdoor track and field in Fort Collins this past weekend? The squad was led by Blaze Holland, who set a personal best time in the 200-meter dash. The freshman finished 2nd overall among Division II athletes, crossing the finish line in a time of 22.30 seconds. Michaela Renfro continues her mastery in the 400 meters, finishing 3rd among Division II runners. Check out more results from the meet at roadrunnersathletics.com.
We now are going to welcome our first guest of the show, Alex Pappas. Alex, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, as we heard, you are new here at MSU Denver. This is your 1st year. So where were you before, and what ended up bringing you here to MSU Denver?
Yeah, so it's like 2.5 months now I've been here. I came here in early January. Before that, I was at UC Riverside out in California. Before that, UC San Diego, and then my first job was at UC Irvine. So I'd kind of worked my way around the UC system out in California. I was looking for a new opportunity, kind of a new setting. And I'd always really loved Colorado whenever I'd come out here, and I was impressed by the MSU Denver athletic department. I thought it was, one of the kind of prominent Division II programs nationally. So when I had the opportunity to come out here, I really jumped at that, and it's been a great couple months so far.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your job and what are some priorities as the Roadrunners Compliance Officer?
So, yeah, priority number 1, keep us out of the newspaper for bad reasons. I looked this morning, the Division II manual for the NCAA is like 267 pages. And like no coach, no student athlete wants to know everything that's in that manual. I don't even want to know everything that's in there. But it's my job to kind of break down that information and give that to our student athletes and coaches in a way that helps them be successful. You know, some people look at compliance as kind of like the cop of the department, but that's really not what it is. It's more like, how can I educate people on what the NCAA rules are in a way that then helps them do their job to the best of their ability? So that's my priority. I try and do like educational emails every week. And then, you know, part of it is just monitoring what's going on, looking out for areas of risk. And then, you know, sometimes students will come to my office for help with financial aid or eligibility, things like that. And that's one of my favorite parts of the job, is when I can help someone individually get through a problem they're having so that they can then be successful on the field for us.
What was it about the compliance world that kind of pushed you and toward choosing it for a career?
Yeah, so it's kind of a difficult question. When I finished college, I went to law school right away. And so after 3 years, I realized I kind of had this problem, which was that I didn't want to be a lawyer, which is a big problem when you went to law school. But I wanted to be involved in sports, and so I kind of did a little bit of research into college athletics, because that was the way I wanted to go. And I saw that a lot of people who had a legal background, had been to law school, went the compliance route, and that was like their way of getting involved in athletics. So that was really how it started. Was I just pursued an internship, and it kind of went from there. And like I said, it's, you know, I understand it's something that a lot of people aren't interested in. Like 270 pages of bylaws is not a lot of fun to go through. So I kind of take pride in knowing that, so that I can pass that on to other people who don't spend their time staring at that all day.
Got it. So the compliance guy can be viewed as a kind of noisy Nelly who is looking around every corner to find violation and get programs in trouble. But in reality, you're here to work with the programs and help them achieve success in collegiate sports, correct?
Yeah. You know, one thing someone told me that I thought was like really helpful was sometimes they'll say compliance officer, and we don't like to use that term because we don't want people to think of us that way. It really is part of a team effort, and no, we're not out, you know, trying to find violations. Like, violations are, you know, minor violations are not the end of the world, but that's never the goal. The goal is to, you know, educate everyone so they know the rules, so that we don't have those issues.
So is it common for programs to make mistakes? You know, we always hear about the big mistakes, like cheating, for instance, or programs paying off their athletes. But what about the little violations? You know, there's so many rules. What are some of the ones that, you know, are learning lessons to make that don't really require strict punishments?
Sure. Yeah. What I've always been told is like the average program will probably have between like 7 to 12 minor violations for a 12-month period. If you're having more than that, then that might be an issue. If you have less, that might mean the compliance office isn't paying enough attention. So you're looking for a balance somewhere in there. But yeah, you know, in terms of, you know, most programs, it's going to be really minor, accidental things. Like, you got an email from a high school student, and in Division II, you can't email them if they're a freshman or a sophomore. But okay, you misread the subject line, and you think they're graduating this year, so you send them an email back. Okay, that's a violation. It's not that big of a deal. You know, we try and avoid those things. We don't want to do it, but there are a lot of violations that can happen inadvertently. And so that's why I want people to feel comfortable if they make that kind of mistake coming to me. I'm not going to be mad about it. We're just going to talk about, all right, how do we avoid that going forward? You know, social media, you see some violations on there. I've seen accidental ones where you click the wrong button. Like, you know, things happen. And as long as you're trying to do the right thing and something happened by accident, I'm not going to get overly upset about it. Just don't want to make the same mistake over and over.
Of course. How many rules are there, and is the rule book way too big to keep track of everything?
I couldn't tell you the exact number of rules. There's like, they number the bylaws. You know, there's like bylaw 13, 14, 17, 16, you know. I went out of order on that. I don't know why. 16 comes before 17. But no, the Division II NCAA manual, they've done a good job, I think, of really kind of deregulating to take out some of those kind of pointless rules that people don't really understand where that came from or what the basis for that was. You know, you look at the NCAA Division I manual, and it's even thicker. You know, you're probably talking like 350 pages in that one. And so there's more differences between the sports in that rule book. So I think no one knows all the rules. If anyone knows all the rules, I would be very surprised. But you know, once you learn the general principles of it, then it's easy to know where to go to get the right answer, because you know, all right, I at least know which area of the manual that's in, or I know, you know, which NCAA educational column applies to this situation. So the more experience you get, you don't have to memorize it all, as long as you know where to go for the right answer and you can do it quickly.
So speaking of violations, it is March Madness currently, and college basketball is at its peak. It's really fun to fill out those brackets, but as I just learned, for student athletes, coaches, and people affiliated with the college athletics, they actually aren't allowed to bet on these teams. Can you tell us why not, and what are the repercussions of doing so?
Sure. Yeah, so the NCAA has a very strong stance against sports gambling. That's something when I meet with teams at the beginning of the year, I always try and bring that up. Is it's not just, you know, student athletes can't gamble on NCAA sports, but any sport that the NCAA offers, that means you can't gamble on that at any level. So like, you can't bet on NFL football because there's NCAA football. The good news with March Madness is you can do the bracket contest as long as you're not putting anything at risk. So if you're not putting down money and it's just a free contest to enter, you're actually okay to do that. But you know, the idea behind that is not wanting student athletes to get involved with gamblers, because then maybe you owe a gambler some money and then he's putting pressure on athletes to impact the results of the game. So that's really why we don't want our student athletes getting involved in sports wagering, and that is something, you know, that we try and emphasize when we meet with the teams. You know, our staff have heard it a lot of times, but we'll periodically send out emails, you know, reminding people not to gamble before the Super Bowl or before March Madness. So, you know, there's plenty of ways to gamble without betting on sports. So I don't think I'm cutting down on people's fun too much. But it's good that they can still, you know, have a bracket with friends, and that's no problem.
Well, Alex, it sounds like you have one of the most interesting jobs here at the campus. Yeah. You know, if you actually read the entire rule book, it probably would make a lot more sense to us what goes on with sports. And we thank you so much for coming on the show tonight, and good luck with your first year here at MSU Denver.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Before we take our first break, we want to bring you the tweet of the week. It comes from our baseball and softball Twitter accounts. Their field got some new padding this week. You can see they're going from green to Roadrunner blue, and it even says Roadrunners on the side. Nice upgrades taking place at the Regency Athletic Complex. You can keep up with everything in the Roadrunners world by following us on Twitter at MSU Denver Sports. Time for that break, but stay tuned. We got more coming up next on the Coach's Corner.
Family-owned Argonaut Wine & Liquor is Colorado's largest superstore. A fixture of Denver for over 45 years, Argonaut has always been the go-to place for liquor, wine, and beer. Whatever you need for that special occasion, big party, or quiet night, Argonaut has it. It's one-stop shopping for all of your beverage needs. We have over 40,000 square feet of space and more than 15,000 items. That's the largest selection in town at the best prices. Plus, we deliver, and parking is free. Join our preferred shopper program to save even more. ArgonautLiquor.com, your liquor superstore for every occasion.
We are student athletes from the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference.
Let's get real about mental health.
1 in 4 of us are currently living with a mental illness.
Let's have an honest conversation about mental health.
1 in 2 of us
will have a mental health issue during our lifetime.
Most of those who can get help improve their quality of life.
You can help stamp out the stigma
associated with seeking help.
Take the pledge at Stamp Out Stigma.
I'm Ashley Kim, senior second baseman for the softball team.
Have the power, they have the ability to do so, and the diving stop by Kim gets there in time. What a play there by the senior.
And you're watching the Coach's Corner. Get rowdy.
Welcome back to the show. Before we chat with Steph, we want to remind you one last time about how you can win a 2-night getaway at the Ritz-Carlton Bachelor Gulch. So listen up. Make sure you visit TivoliBrewingCo.com, click on the promotions tab, provide them your name and email address, and just like that, you'll be entered into this exciting promotion. You must be 21 to enter, and the promotion lasts until March 31st. So get your entry in and give yourself a chance to win an incredible night at the Ritz-Carlton. So now we're going to welcome in Stephanie Bagley, the head athletic trainer here at MSU Denver. Stephanie, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So Alex is telling us that he just got here to MSU Denver, but you're one of our more senior people here.
I am.
Can you tell us how long you've been here?
I've been here 8 years now.
All right. Our own Eric Lansing tells us that you love working for the Roadrunners. Why is that, and what keeps you around here?
Eric Lansing was not lying. I do love to work with the Roadrunners. The athletes here are just the diversity they bring, the stories they have. I'm from small town Illinois, so I did not grow up in a very diverse area. So to hear stories from other people and learn how they got here and see them go from freshmen to seniors or super seniors and see their story progress is really, really fun for me to watch.
Glad to hear it.
So while we're sure your list of duties is off the charts, what are your main priorities as a head athletic trainer?
Yep, so I have 3 assistants. So between the 4 of us, we cover all 16 sports. We go to games, we travel with the teams, we cover practices, and our main objective is to try to keep people as safe as possible, injury-wise, and if something does happen, we're there immediately to help take care of injuries, take them through rehab after surgeries, you know, just kind of be the caregivers of the team, as well as kind of the unpaid stuff of the counseling, the life coaches when they come in and tell us stories, and we try to guide them to a different direction as to what they might be doing.
So you mentioned a staff. How big is your staff, and how do they help you with the 16 different programs here at MSU Denver?
So we have 4 staff athletic trainers. I cover men's basketball and women's golf. My assistant Drew Powers, who's also been here 8 years, has volleyball, women's basketball. Kristen Barnett has women's soccer and softball, as well as cross country and track. And then TJ Schmidt, who's been here 2 years, has men's soccer, tennis, and baseball. So between the 4 of us, and sometimes we help each other out too. You know, if someone's on the road, maybe somebody else has to take care of the home events. So between the 4 of us, we do as best as we can to make sure everybody's covered.
As an athletic trainer, you've probably got to be watching those games really intently, just in case something does happen. What are some of the things that you have to look for, and how quickly do you have to respond just in case there is an injury?
It kind of depends on the sport. So with the volleyball team, I used to work with the volleyball team. I'd always watch at the net, because that's where most of the injuries are going to happen, when two athletes jump and maybe land on each other's feet, or their knee buckles, that kind of thing. So with volleyball, it's usually at the net. With basketball, it's a lot underneath the rim. So on a rebound, someone get elbowed in the head or in the face or something like that. Baseball and softball are very similar. You know, you're watching to make sure the batter doesn't get hit. As far as how quickly to react, kind of depends on knowing the athlete, for one. There are certain athletes that you know are going to react a certain way and just need a minute to compose themselves. There are other athletes who never fall down, never stay down on the court, and those I tend to react to a little quicker, especially if it's a head injury, or if I see a knee buckle or an ankle turnover really far. I'm going to probably hustle a little bit more than I would if they're kind of out in the open and nothing really seemed to happen and they just need a minute to get back up.
So it's a by-scenario basis.
Yes, absolutely.
So when serious injuries do take place, how much of the aftermath takes place here at MSU Denver, and how much takes place at a medical facility?
Yeah, we try to do as much as we can here, just for time's sake, for consistency of care. That way we're the ones with them every day. But there are some things like hips and backs that we tend to maybe send them to physical therapy offsite, at least get them started, and then once they get the initial rehab started, we might take over after that. But we try to do as much as possible here on campus.
So since we're bringing up injuries, we're going to bring up one of the most common injuries, concussions. They're really prolific in collegiate sports. Are we learning anything new about these types of injuries and the effects of these types of injuries?
So every couple years, it seems like something new as far as treatment comes out. You know, when I started 12 years ago, it was somebody gets a concussion, they should be in a dark room by themselves and sleep it off until they feel better. And just a couple years ago, it kind of came out that, well, maybe that has kind of a reverse effect also, because now they're socially, they're not interacting with anybody, and they can go down I don't want to say depression, but anxiety can arise because now they're by themselves all the time, you know, you're not supposed to watch TV, and you're not supposed to read a book. So it's kind of like, well, what do? You
Not even come to school, right?
You don't come to school, so you're just supposed to sit in a dark room by yourself. So now we're trying to get them integrated a little bit quicker. Hey, if you have a headache but you think you can sit through class, sit through class. And the first thing is always to get them back in the classroom first. That's the priority is, they're student athletes. So we need to make sure that they can sit through class first before we try to get them back on the court doing anything. So it seems like kind of every so many years, new information comes out as what's best, and everyone tries it for a while, and then something else comes out, and we try it again. And I mean, I think it's gotten to a good spot. Obviously, the safety's first, education, and then athletics.
Is there anything new coming down the athletic training pipe that we should know about? Anything that could change the scope of collegiate sports?
So all athletic trainers will soon need to have a master's degree. So up until I think 2022, maybe 23, you can still graduate with a bachelor's degree. But the governing body of athletic trainers is saying that we need to have a master's degree now, which myself and my staff all have. So the students that are graduating now will have to go either, hopefully here, we're still working on to see if we can get a master's degree here, or someplace else to finish out to get that master's degree.
All right, last question. Are there any special cases that have stuck with you throughout the years? We heard about one of our volleyball stars that have graduated, Michaela Smith, who went from 2 torn labrum surgeries to All-American. A lot of that came from because of the training that you guys did and the hard work that you put in order to bring her back.
And she actually had 3. She did both hips and a shoulder.
So my mistake.
No. The shoulder came, I think, after her, maybe after her senior year. So she was still in school here, had surgery, and we continued on. Yeah, she's probably the case that sticks with the most, because after 3 surgeries like that, and she was here for 4.5, 5 years, her and I spent a lot of time together. We actually still, every month, get together and have breakfast and just kind of catch up and make sure life is good for both of us. But she's the one that, from what I can remember, probably has the most injuries, but again, became an All-American and helped to lead a very successful team for many years.
It was a tough injury, but it ended up turning out very well.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we wish you the best of luck for the rest of the season here at MSU Denver.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Time for another break, but stay tuned. We're going to bring in Jerrid Oates next to talk with us. You're going to want to stick around for this, so stay tuned.
In the heart of the city, Metropolitan State University of Denver is holding the line on the American dream. Our students come from every background and experience. They are tenacious, purposeful, entrepreneurial. They choose the highest quality and best value in Colorado higher education, and they choose their own roads for more than 70 undergrad and graduate degrees. Relevant, hands-on, and affordable education. Discover your road to success at msudenver.edu.
Hi, I'm Jay Smith, senior guard from the women's basketball team.
How about that great assist by Jalen Smith off the seat of her pants?
And you're watching Coach's Corner. Get rowdy.
Welcome back. Before we talk with Jerrid, we want to remind you that you need to be following us on Twitter. We're MSU Denver Sports. We have everything from highlights, interviews, feature stories, scores, and schedules, and much more. We know you love the Roadrunners, and there's no better way to keep up with all 16 sports than by following us on Twitter. That's at MSU Denver Sports. Don't miss a single thing in Roadrunner Sports. We're now going to welcome Jerrid Oates onto the show. Jerrid, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Jerrid, can you tell us a little bit about what you do here at MSU Denver?
Assistant Athletic Director. I ultimately operate and run all of our facilities, both PE Event Center and then the Regency Athletic Complex for our outdoor sports.
Got it.
So the Regency Athletic Complex is an incredible facility that is not only utilized by Roadrunner Athletics, but folks outside of MSU Denver. Who else uses those fields, and does it become a tool to bring in more revenue for the fields and the programs?
Yeah, it's used by a bunch of different groups, all the way from high school programs that use it for their home fields, play games. We run a bunch of summer baseball, softball tournaments. We do things with Big Brothers, Little Big Sisters. So it's a real wide variety of different organizations that reach out to us to use the facility.
So speaking of people using the facility, as you and a lot of us have already mentioned, the 2019 Softball College World Series is actually going to be held here at the RAC in 2019. You know, what is the process of requesting to host such a prestigious event? You know, what are the odds and ends in order to host the World Series of softball?
So it just starts out as a bid process with the NCAA. So anybody that's interested in hosting, they fill out the appropriate paperwork. Once the NCAA picks their site, which they picked us for 3 of the next 4 years, then it just becomes a bunch of meetings, phone calls, conference calls, a couple site visits along the way. But it's not just for the complex, it's at hotels, it's lining up the banquets, all those sort of things. You know, I always say the easiest part for us will be once the games start, because that's what we do every weekend from September to May. It's all the lead up and the banquets and those sort of things. That's really where a lot of the work comes into play.
A lot of work, lots of fun. What were some of the changes that needed to be made in order to get it up to par? You know, did we have to add in seating? Did we have to expand anything?
No, we didn't have to do anything like that. We've done a little bit of things here and there because of it. Like we just put in all brand new padding on both baseball and softball. Part of it was it needs to be done. The other half of it was, you know, make it look a little bit better when we do host the World Series.
So the Auraria Events Center will also be hosting a national championship this year. The 2019 Division II Volleyball Championship will be held in Denver. What changes needed to be made in order to host that event?
So that one's a little bit different. We actually did have to do some different changes. So we're in the process right now of starting a remodel within the gym. The main things that we're going to be doing is adding a video board, putting in new bleachers, and then also renovating and adding locker room spaces for both the officials and visiting teams. So.
Speaking of renovations, we saw on Twitter that the baseball and the softball fields ended up getting a little bit of an update this past week. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how it'll be beneficial to the teams playing on that field?
Yeah, it's kind of an eye candy thing more than anything else. It was the padding was, we're in year 5 with the padding and just being in the Colorado elements, so starting to break that down. So we were able to do both baseball and softball. You know, we changed some things. It was green padding. We've moved now to navy and red, kind of getting it more into our school colors. And then we were able to do some branding too, which I think is pretty cool. So down the right field line at softball, it says Roadrunners now. We were able to put the bird heads on both backstops, NCAA logo on both backstops, and then the dugout railing, that padding is also going to be branded out for us.
Awesome.
So when you have such an outstanding place like the RAC, you have to keep it clean, keep it working, keep it updated. Does it take a huge amount of work to keep it up to your type of standards? Eric was telling us a speaker may have blew last week, making it sound like an ocean liner was parking on the soccer field.
Yeah, you know, there's always, it's kind of funny where like in year 5 of the facility, so all these kind of like random one-off things are starting to break down, which is what you're going to get as a facility gets older. So this year's been kind of some like that when the speakers were going crazy and not really knowing what the reasoning was behind it or anything. But that just kind of comes with age, just like a car or anything like that. The older things get, the more they start to break down. So we're in a little bit of that process right now of kind of fixing some things that have stopped working for us. But you know, that all comes with the facility, and we're able to do some things through the rentals and that help offset those costs. So it's been pretty easy fixes so far.
Well, Jerrid, it sounds super interesting what you're doing, and we thank you so much for letting us in on it. We wish you the best of luck as you and your crew prepare for the Softball World Series this May.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's about time to wrap up that episode, but stay tuned for just a minute longer. We want to remind you about what's coming up this week in Roadrunner Sports. Head coach Ryan Strain will lead his squad to 2 series this week. First, they'll head to Greeley for a quick doubleheader on Tuesday, where they'll go toe-to-toe against Division I Northern Colorado. Then our baseball team will be back home on the weekend as they'll welcome in Regis University for a 4-game set. It'll kick off this Friday at 6 p.m. under the lights, so come on out to the Regency Athletic Complex and cheer on our baseball team who has won 10 straight games. Softball team also has a couple of series on the docket this week. They'll first battle Colorado Christian at home on Tuesday afternoon, starting at 3 p.m. Then the Roadrunners will head to Alamosa to take on the Grizzlies from Adams State. The 2 teams will go at it for doubleheaders on Saturday and Sunday to continue conference play in the RMAC.
The tennis teams are also on the road this week and will take on 4 opponents in 4 days in Missouri. They have already started their road trip today, facing off against Newman University and Wichita. And finally, the outdoor track and field team will be in action this Saturday. They'll compete in the Spang Blazing Invitational in Pueblo, Colorado. So a lot of our spring sports in action this week, and you can keep up with all of them at roadrunnersathletics.com.
That's going to wrap up this show, and we would like to thank, of course, Alex, Stephanie, and of course Jerrid for being on the show with us. I would also like to give a personal thank you to Brenda for helping us out this spring break. Thank you, Brenda.
No, thank you for having me here, and also I'll be looking forward to being here again.
That'll wrap it up for us. We'll see you next week on the Coach's Corner.